Welcome, everyone. I'm Ashish Kaushal, founder of Consciously Unbiased, an organization that unlocks the potential of your people in the workplace. And I'm also CEO of Higher Talent staffing firm based in the US. Today's conversation is called Business with Purpose. We'll be talking about Harvard Business Review's calls to triple the bottom line, where success is measured not only measured by financial profit, but also by companies' impact on people, like employees and community and the planet, and the impact on the environment and the global footprint. We have some amazing leaders today with us to share how they're mixing business with purpose. So let's introduce our guests: Laura Turner, VP and Head of Community Impact at TIAA. Sarah Lake, CEO of Tilt Collective, and then hopefully joining us soon is Latavius Murray, former NFL player and president of the John Diaz Community Center. Welcome, everyone. Can we start off by each of you having us share a little about what you do and what being a purpose leader means to you? Sarah, do you want to start?
Sure, I can. Yeah, thanks so much, Ashish. As you mentioned, I'm CEO of Tilt Collective, and Tilt Collective is a new philanthropic initiative that aims to create a world in which people have access to sustainable and healthy food. And we do this by trying to make it easier and affordable for people to access plant-rich foods, in particular, trying to decenter industrial meat from our food system, knowing it's not great for the planet, not great for health. And in particular within this, I think what me being a purpose-driven leader means to me is not only are we acutely focused on impact and thinking through every decision, is this delivering the most positive impact in the world, but actually thinking through how are we creating positive impact for others outside of our direct mission. So kind of like the Harvard Business Review mentioned, how are we actually holding up others as well and thinking through a broader ecosystem approach? How are we supporting peers in the environment? How are we supporting our grantees as a grant maker? And thinking more holistically than just what are we delivering, but how are we enabling others to also be purpose-driven?
Interesting. And how did you start this firm?
I didn't start it, but I started a similar nonprofit and then moved over to run Tilt about 2.5 years ago. But pretty much came to the recognition that in the world of climate, people weren't talking about food. People were talking about energy. They're talking about transportation. We were seeing electric cars and solar panels become popular. But food is about 1/3 of all climate change. It's a massive overlooked issue. And it's something people didn't really want to talk about because it's political, it's cultural. People feel very strongly about what they eat compared to where their electricity comes from when they turn on the light switch. So we were set up to actually ask the fundamental question and say, how can we examine what we eat, not just how it's grown, which has been mostly the center of attention to date in the climate world, but how can we think through what we eat and helping create a system that offers and enables people to choose differently, not try to, beg people to choose a more sustainable option, but imagine a world where supermarkets and schools and hospitals are offering what is a healthy and sustainable choice.
Interesting. I love it. And Laura, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what it means to be a purpose-driven leader. And then it's interesting, both of you guys are in categories where they're sort of under attack right now, education and food.
It's fair. So I'm Laura Turner. I lead community impact at TIAA. We're probably the largest company you've never heard of. We're a Fortune 100 retirement company, and I'm responsible for our charitable giving and volunteerism. And our company, speaking of purpose, was really founded as a nonprofit by Andrew Carnegie over 100 years ago. And it was formed to address a societal issue that was really important to him at that time. And he saw that teachers who were educating really the change makers of that time were retiring in abject poverty. And he thought that that was wrong. And so he founded Teachers Insurance and Annuity Association, that's what the TIA stands for, in 1918 to provide lifetime income for those educators so that they couldn't outlive any retirement savings. So we continue that mission 100 years later, helping more Americans with a secure financial future, and also that informs our community focus. So we are focused on helping more first generation students, those whose parents didn't get a 4-year degree, get to and through college. So, and we believe that education really opens more doors to a more secure financial future. And I can speak to that personally because I'm a first generation professional myself. I know what it did for me and my brother and my sister. And to answer your question in terms of the best purpose-driven leader, my background's in human resources, so I come at this from that mindset. But the best purpose-driven leaders that I've worked with in my career have one really common trait, and that is that they're very secure in themselves, and that translates into authenticity and how they lead others and how they bring people along. So they bring their empathy to work. They, take time to, as I said, bring people along, explain the why, provide context. I'm a huge context person, so I love that, and rally their teams around a collective mission. So they really build real connections with people.
I love that you brought up confidence. I don't think I've heard someone say that before. And I think that's fundamental to being a good leader, is to have confidence, and also have confidence to bring in people that are better than you and just get them to work together.
Agree, 100%.
Ladvis, welcome. I'd love to get your thoughts on what you think is an important aspect of being a purpose-driven leader and what it means to you.
Are you asking me? I want to make sure I heard you.
Oh, I think you're.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. You mind repeating the question?
Yes.
I apologize. And how's everybody doing? Sorry, I popped in late. I was in the wrong. I had a few meetings.
Okay. So what does being a purpose-driven leader mean to you, and what makes a good purpose-driven leader in your aspect?
Yeah. I think. What does it mean? I think really just not getting involved or signing up or doing things that don't really speak to you and that you really don't connect with, and it doesn't really it's not near and dear maybe to your heart. And I think a lot of times we find ourselves saying yes to a lot of things and getting involved, and we want to help, and so much things we want to do, but a lot of times you got to really kind of ask yourself, like, is this something that I'm really passionate about? Is this something that really means a lot to me? Is this something that really speaks to me and my journey, or whatever that might be? And so for me, that's what kind of stands out, is really recognizing and being aware of whatever you're doing, and is this something that really speaks to you and it really means something to you? And I think when it does, the fruits of that really shows.
I love that. Sarah, what do you think? Profit and purpose, are they mutually exclusive? And if not, what ways? How can we redefine how business measure profit and value, not just money alone?
Yeah, it's an important question, because I think historically profit has been pretty narrowly defined based off of the strict calculation of material revenue versus thinking through what's the benefit for people or what's the benefit for the planet. And I think it's a newer concept that hopefully is gaining traction, that these are inextricably linked. And actually you can't just say, oh, we'll focus on people and planet as well, but actually there is a business case around focusing on people and on planet that helps build profit. They're mutually reinforcing. So one of the things we see is that, in our work around sustainability and trying to improve our food system, is that some of the healthier and more sustainable choices that are good for people and good for the environment are good for profit. So a great example is some of the work we fund is getting plant-based foods into hospitals so that patients who are recovering are eating healthier food. And the hospitals that have piloted this have found not only is it good for their carbon footprint, not only are patients healthier and having better recovery, but they're also saving 50 cents per meal. So there's the interconnectedness of this that often's overlooked, that if from a purely profit model, if they were to say, how do we reduce costs and make the most money as a hospital on our meals, they actually might be less effective than starting from the question of how do we offer healthy and sustainable food. So I think it's important that we move to a model that recognizes these three have to be considered together, and starting from the question of impact and purpose can help in terms of thinking through what is a purely economic model of profit.
Yeah, and I also think that if you have purpose and not just profit in mind, people will work harder for you, which will translate into more profit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's one of the things I'm most proud of at Tilt Collective is our employees are very, very happy because they feel like they have purpose, they have autonomy in their jobs, but also we recognize them as whole people, right? As you don't just show up as an employee, but we see that our staff are whole individuals and they are able to bring them their whole selves to work, whether that's showing what they're passionate about and bringing that into the workplace, or also recognizing we're all parents and sometimes kids are sick and you need a flex day and accommodating for that, rather than sort of just focusing on what is the workplace as a workplace.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Laura, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I would like to build on what Sarah said. I think it's really important for companies to really take the entirety of their impact into account when they're measuring success, rather than just dollars and cents. And as I think about that, I think, most all organizations exist for a reason. They have a purpose, and they must stay financially viable to continue the mission, obviously. But I think that they should and often do also serve a societal good. And for us at TIA, as I mentioned, our core clients are higher ed professionals. So professors, administrators who are focused on educating the next generation. And when we revisited our community focus, we asked ourselves, how can we help these noble educators beyond just their retirement? How can we have, a bigger impact on our communities? And that through line of purpose and profit allows us to increase our value to our clients and addresses a critical societal need as well.
Absolutely. I love that. Latvis, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, they all mentioned, good points, but I think like Sarah said, she, in the work that she's doing, obviously I'm the president of the John Diaz Community Center here, and we're raising funds to build a community center in the area that I grew up locally. And so, again, I think it's not so much of thinking about the end goal, but I think it's almost like the process and why you're doing it is that's what helps me, I guess, on a day-to-day, and continue to do what we need to do to raise the money and to get support and donors, is not focusing kind of on the end goal, focus on the reason why I signed up to do it, the impact that I know it'll have, and then, like I said, ultimately the lives will change kind of after that. But when you kind of focus on the end goal, I think a lot of things can get lost in that.
Can we take a step back, kind of give us your background and how you got into the John Diaz Community Center, how you founded it, and then will it create an economic impact or wellness in the community?
So I grew up in Syracuse, New York, a small town called Nedrow, and growing up, I used to go to Boys and Girls Clubs and YMCA's, community centers, that kind of thing. I think we all kind of did, and we had to go on the other side of town for those kind of resources and that access. And so I always dreamed about having our own community center in my neighborhood, in our hometown, and that's really where that kind of came from, right? Like, it was literally a dream of mine as a kid. And then once I played professionally for 11 years, started with the Raiders, finished with the Bills. And so about halfway through my career is when I launched the foundation. And then we're about halfway through our fundraising goal to put shovels in the ground. And so, and then I named it after a best friend of mine who passed away in 2016. And so, that connection piece there, obviously, like I said, I grew up going to community centers, but at the same time, to be able to honor a friend who is from the same community as well. You know, a passion, really. And so when it comes from that place, again, it makes it easier. It doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like you're really doing something that you lived through and that you've been through. And so, yeah.
I love that. And how have you seen it benefit the youth and the broader community?
Well, I know the youth for sure are very excited about it, especially the youth in that community that it'll serve. And so I think the feedback has been great. The support has been great, and just excited to, like I said, get shovels in the ground and start the process so that we can start offering those services that the community really needs. And because it's a childcare desert, we'll have that as well. So a lot of needs that it'll fill, and I think that's really just what it's all about: providing that access, providing those resources.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Sarah, the food we eat and how it's produced is often overlooked in climate conversations. How is Tilt Collective trying to change that?
Yeah, as I mentioned, food is enormously overlooked in climate, and it offers one of the greatest impact levers for us to address climate change. Not only is food in particular a large part of climate change, but the shift from the current food system to one that is more plant-rich, one that is balanced diets, is one of the greatest levers in the food system to achieve climate goals. And when we talk about balanced diets, what we're talking about is largely overconsumption of meat products, and recognizing, the average American eats as much as 3 times the recommended amount of meat, as much as 6 times the recommended amount of red meat. So that we're not saying everyone's supposed to go vegan or vegetarian. We're actually saying there's just widespread overconsumption of meat. And this is leading to enormous problems in terms of obesity and heart disease and diabetes. So it's a compounded issue. It's burdening our health system at the same time. So a major role that we play is how can we draw more attention on the role of food as a climate solution, but also as a health solution. And these being critically interlinked right now, particularly in the US, where we're seeing the health epidemic, the obesity epidemic. So part of our strategy is to say this isn't actually around trying to convince people to choose differently, but how do we create a system that incentivizes healthier and sustainable food? Because right now, in most places you go in the US, the cheapest food is going to be Doritos and hot dogs and, the most processed, unhealthy food that is out there. It doesn't mean you can't have those, but we also want to make it easier for people to access whole fruits and vegetables. I'm talking about food deserts, particularly in low-income communities, marginalized communities that don't have access to these products, or they're really expensive. I mean, if you can feed your family for $20 with KFC, that's going to be more accessible than trying to pay for fresh vegetables and then find the time to cook those. So how do we change the system to make it easier for people? This comes down to everything from schools. So how do we get healthier school meals and more plant-based options, to hospitals and other public institutions, but also even fast food and supermarkets, where most of us buy our food somewhere at a supermarket, but these products are not promoted well, they're not advertised well, they're not priced in a way that can help us afford it, which always stands out to me. If I go into a grocery store, a block of tempeh, which some people know what tempeh is, it's sort of like a soybean product, is $5 a block, but it's probably 50 cents to produce. But it's a huge profit margin for supermarkets compared to meat, which is a loss leader for supermarkets. They lose money sometimes selling meat, but they know consumers want it. What all these studies show is that if you price whole foods, vegetables, plant-based products at a lower price and put them next to the meat options on the shelves, people buy them in exponential amounts compared to what they do now. It's simply harder to find and not at the right price point for people to want them. So we ask this fundamental question of how can we make it easier for people to choose these products, make it affordable and accessible to everyone, regardless of income or class.
So why is tempeh more expensive? Because there's a lower volume of people buying them, so they want more margin on it? Is that the...
Well, that's part of it. The other part of it is supermarkets know that it's a niche product and people will pay more for it. There's not a lot of people who want to eat tempeh, right? It's not sort of this high value product. But if you look at other types of plant-based foods, right, you have lots of, Impossible Burgers or plant-based chicken nuggets. Right now, those are actually almost comparable to meat, especially because the cost of meat has gone up so much.
Yeah.
So supermarkets sort of take advantage of what they know they can charge for these products, but the more and more people demand them, the more the price goes down, and the supermarkets themselves can see this as an opportunity.
And you're saying that healthy food has a lower carbon footprint and is better for you long-term to help you live a better life, maybe not longer, but better?
Absolutely. I mean, definitely longer. When you look at all the studies, when you're looking at ultra processed meat in particular,
Yeah.
it's one of the leading causes of colon cancer. And we're seeing it's been in the news a lot that rates of colon cancer are off the charts, particularly on certain age groups, because they're eating more bacon, they're eating more ham and deli meat, more charcuterie and like processed meats. And all of that has nitrates and nitrites and these synthetic ingredients for curing them that are directly linked to cancer. It's actually named by the World Health Organization that it is a carcinogenic product, but we still serve this to our kids. And it's terrible for the environment. That beef in particular is one of the highest carbon footprints of any protein out there. Cows take up a lot of land in terms of the feed they require, and they also burp methane, which is particularly bad for the planet. So we are at the same time choosing to produce food that has the biggest climate footprint and is the worst for our bodies, when we could be producing a lot more food that is plant rich and better for our bodies, knowing there's also an efficiency element to this. We produce use most of our land to produce animal feed that is then a very small conversion rate to protein versus producing other types of vegetable proteins on the land that we have.
Interesting. I didn't realize all that. Makes sense, though. Laura, more than half today's college populations are first-generation students, meaning that they're first in their families to attend college. Yet 76% never graduate. How is TIA? Well, one, why is that happening? Why is it such a high rate? And then number two is how is TIA helping bridge the gap for these students?
Thanks for the question. It is a staggering number, for sure. And there's a variety of reasons that first-generation college students struggle to make it to graduation. It can be anything from an unexpected medical bill that they can't pay, and so they need to withdraw from school to work to cover the expense. It can be family needs. It can be the stress of school itself. Kind of, imagine going to a town where you're not given a map and you don't have a smartphone and you're tasked to find your way through. It can be really challenging and frustrating. So what we're doing to support college students is exactly to address those issues. And so we do it in a couple different ways. We obviously it is a mammoth problem that TIA alone is not going to solve, but we wanted to really focus on how can we help at a macro level by supporting organizations that address those largest hurdles. As I mentioned, finances and access to resources are two of the biggest reasons. And so we work with an organization called First Gen Forward, and they partner with colleges and universities, about 500 of them, to employ like evidence-based models, things that are proven to help these students succeed. We support Swipe Out Hunger, which is an organization helping over 900 college campuses address student hunger, and also offer scholarships to first-gen students so that they can graduate with little or no student debt. And so that's the macro way that we address it. But then we also are very hands-on with colleges and universities that are adjacent to our 4 largest offices. And so we partner with those schools and their first gen student success offices to address some of the additional barriers of mental health, belonging, career readiness, all of those things. The degree is no good without a job, right? So we want to help more students be able to bridge from college into their career of choice or graduate school. And many of our associates, like myself, are first generation. So we know, and we take a lot of pride in that as an identity. And that's something really important too, is kind of flipping the stigma that, if your parents didn't go to college, you don't belong in college. While it's not for everyone, it is a very viable means for individuals and their families to be able to move out of poverty, into higher earning jobs, into very fulfilling jobs. And we're really committed to paying it forward for those next generation of graduates.
I love that. And you're also, I think you guys hire a lot of interns too, which shows the interns the value of working in an organization and getting your degree and completing that.
We do. Internships are critical. That's how early talent is getting jobs in corporate America today. And sadly, a number of students can't afford to do the internship to get the job. If they're paying their way through college, you often have to take a pay cut to do an internship. So we've adopted some creative methods to try to help those students be able to take advantage of internships.
I love that. From a consumer's point of view, it may be easy to say I can make an impact, but how does more social conscious be shifting to prompt consumers be more part of the change? What do you guys think about that?
I'm sorry, I gotta ask, just if you don't mind repeating the question just one more time.
Sure. Yeah, from a consumer point of view, it may be easy to say I can't make an impact, right? But how might social consciousness be shifting to prompt consumers to be part of that change? So, for example, little things like buying more vegetable or healthy-oriented foods will sort of push the needle on social impact, because it's going to cause people to do things right by the environment, right? It's an indirect consequence of having that impact.
It might be, it seems like a Sarah question, but I guess from that standpoint, I just believe in anything. It just kind of takes one person. It can only take, all it takes is one person. And so I think it's as simple as that, right? Like if you feel that you don't matter, or but people are watching, it can only take one person. And I know that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, even what you're doing, so think about it, you're helping a community and helping children sort of find their value and learn skills, and that becomes contagious because they teach their friends, and that kind of it compounds itself, right? And so that creates social impact.
Yeah. So in that case, then I guess in my line, I tell people all the time, like the reason why I wanted to build a community center, obviously, because like I said, I lived that, and so for me, I remember meeting Carmelo Anthony. I remember meeting Preston Shumpert. So like it's those interactions that forever change your life. And at the time, those guys don't know what it's doing to me or a young kid, but I knew, and I always know, and I'll never forget. And so it's my job to try to recreate that moment or that experience for the next generation or the next kid.
I love that.
Yeah.
And Laura?
Yeah. You have to see it to be it, right? From my perspective, I think that, we live in really heavy times right now. And I think it's super easy to look at the scale and the scope of need that's out there and think, oh, we can't solve all of this. But I think it's important to what was said earlier, that we look at what is possible instead of what isn't possible. Our company, again, we're just one company trying to help students. But we've helped over 1.4 million students, like just a little company, coming together and wanting to make a difference. So I think it is important to not be trapped in the thinking that you can't solve a problem 100%. We can make it better, and we can make it better for a lot of people. And we just count one person at a time, and it can, become a ripple effect. For every student that we help, they're helping their families. One of the nonprofit partners that we work with is Carolina Youth Coalition here in Charlotte, where I live. And they help students get to and through college as debt-free as possible. And they measure the students when they enter their program. It's a 4-year program for high school students to help them navigate how to prepare for your standardized tests, the dreaded, SAT and ACT, how to apply for colleges. They take them on college visits, and they measure the household income of the student when they enter the program versus when they get their first job. And what they found was 97% of their students earn more in their first year after they got their degree than their household did when they entered the program.
Wow.
So if you think about that impact, and then when that student, completes college, then their brothers and sisters go, their cousins do, their parents can even, we have many students that are first generation in college today that are not 18 and between 18 and 22. People are going back at all ages, and it's opening doors for them, which I think is fantastic.
I love that. And Sarah?
Yeah, to add on to what Latavius and Laura said, I think this is exactly right, which is like one person can make a difference and the systems can change. My advice generally is pay attention, be loud, and amplify what you're hearing from others. And I think to Latavius's point, people are paying attention more to what's happening, to what's in their food, to what's happening in their neighborhood. And I think more and more people are recognizing, looking around and saying, wait a minute, this neighborhood over here has a community center and mine doesn't. Why is that? But the people who recognize that first are often the most disadvantaged, most systematically excluded from policy processes and decisions. So a big part of what people can do is say, well, if I'm in a position of privilege, how can I help amplify what's happening over there? And I saw a comment in the chat around the hope for better food in schools. And this is something we see all the time where, kids actually want better food in their schools. My 8-year-old hates school lunch because it's pretty gross what they serve, but people don't listen to the kids, right? They don't really listen to them. So how can we advocate for them? How can we be loud and demand what we want and then bring others with us that helps make that change? And it's true that, a small group of people is often the ones that make the most change, but figuring out how we're doing this also in a way that resonates with what people want. If we go in, one thing that we're really mindful of is if we go in and say everyone should eat less meat, that does not land well. Nobody wants to hear that. But if we go in and say our kids deserve healthier and better food, people hear that because everyone understands that kids are important and a lot of people are parents. So how do we actually frame this issue in a way that resonates with what people are feeling and caring about today? And so in this question of sort of social consciousness, part of it is simply paying attention, but also recognizing that what people care about is shifting. And they're also probably caring about 20 different things at once. So how do we sort of tap into that what the top of their list, which often is not things like sustainability or thinking through the ingredients in their food, but they are thinking about their health and the health of their kids most often.
Yeah. Consciously unbiased, there's a few things we say. One is like doing the right thing just for the sake of doing the right thing is not like going to work in business because business is in the business of making money. But if you show that doing the right thing has economic impact, then you're going to see the businesses really make this part of their DNA. And then from a change standpoint, we always say, if you want to change the world, you want to change your community, you want to change your environment, you want to change your work environment or your home environment, you just got to start changing yourself, and that becomes contagious. And then be curious about it. And people won't, you don't have to say anything. People will see the change you're doing, and that'll replicate the change across your relationships in your community. So having said that, purpose-driven companies are able to, it's a fact that they can attract talent and retain talent better. Can you talk about that in your experiences? Have you seen that, Laura?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So definitely. So, I think that every company who cares about leadership should ask itself, where does that leadership come from? Like supporting talent today really starts 20 years before they ever enter the workforce. So it's kind of like if you're planning for retirement at age 60, you're a little late, right? You can save, but you're a little late. The same is true when you're thinking about building your talent. So for us, as 100-year-old company, our mission is certainly about the long game. And so, as I mentioned, we're a company that's kind of built off of financial security for educators and ensuring the next generation of educators and a broader workforce can reach graduation is really, really important. I think if purpose-driven companies want to attract and retain talent, they should really consider completion-focused programs, things that are really meeting employees where they are and helping them, again, obviously near and dear to my heart, but get their certificate, their degree, their whatever it is that's putting them on a path to a strong career and a rewarding career.
Absolutely. I love that. Sarah?
Yeah, I don't think it's any surprise that people would want to work at a purpose-driven organization, because I think all of us want to make a difference in the world. And the problem is there's too many companies out there that don't do that, and people need jobs, period. So you end up working at a place where you're not very happy, you're not feeling rewarded in your work. So I think it's important that companies realize the benefit of that in terms of being able to offer that to their employees, but also it's economical. Like if your staff stay, you save so much in terms of the HR costs and the downtime of hiring and rehiring. So it certainly pays off in terms of the profit question as well. But I think more and more people are recognizing that they want to have purpose in their job and that the two shouldn't necessarily be exclusive. So I think there's a growing demand for those types of jobs and people who are willing to go above and beyond for a company that is offering more than just a paycheck.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lanavis, your thoughts?
Yeah, so we have a lot of volunteers, right? And so our folks aren't getting paid, and so I think right out the gate, what stands out and the reason why they want to volunteer is because of the purpose behind what we're doing and the mission, and so that makes it easy. But retaining and I guess retaining in a sense is, I think a lot of that is can be up to me, right? Making sure people feel appreciated and feel that the work they're doing matters and that it's impacting our mission, right? It's getting us closer to our goal, right? And so I think a lot of that does fall on me, and I take a full responsibility, especially because we're not paying employees and we have a lot of volunteers and they're taking time out. And so, but I think it's easy when you have a purpose-driven, mission and company, and obviously being in a nonprofit world, that is kind of what we're doing. And so, yeah, when we don't have people on payroll and people have to take time out of their day and their schedules, especially when we host things like galas and our coat drives and things like that, right? You just really have to show people the appreciation that you have for them and what they're doing to help you, I guess, get to the goal that you have in mind. So super grateful, but I think they need to know that, and you have to be a great leader in reinforcing and showing that appreciation.
I love that. And they're getting paid in appreciation. And I think it's important that you pointed that out, because I think it's not always dollars that make the currency,
And show them the difference that they're making too, right? In a sense, right? You can provide and show them. I think it feels good to know that the work you're doing is making a difference. And so you remind them and show them of the impact that they're making and what it's doing.
Yeah, no, for sure. At Consciously Unbiased, we have this thing called micro progressions, and it's like a small action step that you can do to help make your organization a little bit better. So leaders at all levels practice to help make giving back part of their mission. What's one micro progression that they could do to make sure that they're helping give back to their community and their environment?
Well, for me, I'll be honest. Like, I always almost have like an open door policy to make sure I'm accessible to, not just my community, but other communities and other high schools and kids, kind of really anywhere. Like I live in Florida. I have 5 kids, and I've coached down there, and girls and boys. But when I come home, obviously my community is home in the community center, and so I just try to be accessible. I think wherever I'm at, whichever community I'm in, and I feel that's my way. I know a lot of people hear about the community center that you're building, but regardless of where I'm at, I want kids and people to know that I want to help and impact any way I can.
I love that. And Laura?
I love that too. And I love the concept of micro progression. I might have to steal that. My advice is to really start by understanding the issue that's most important to your customers, to your community. Rally your colleagues to better understand that issue by volunteering and listening and learning. And I think the listening and learning part is particularly important when you're engaging in the community, is to really go in with a very open mind and an open heart. So educate your employees on how to volunteer with empathy and sensitivity. And, sometimes it's as simple as making it a habit to look people in the eye, especially people who are in the margins, and just offer a kind smile. You don't have to do anything more than that to really maybe make a difference in somebody's life. I know that sounds, really, really basic. But you'd be surprised. My son is on the autism spectrum, and many times people were looking away, or he would have unexpected behavior, and they would, make a frowny face and, and maybe sit in judgment a little bit. Just the people that stopped and smiled or said, what a beautiful little boy or whatever, just really helped me through some difficult times. And I think everybody's walking around with something. So I think that it's really critical that we support each other in even the smallest of ways of just being seen and being met with some kindness.
I love it. And the impact you don't realize you're having, right?
Absolutely. You never know.
Definitely. And Sarah?
I love both those suggestions from both Latavius and Laura. Those are great. I think for leaders, as I mentioned earlier, I'd recommend thinking about how to be impact generous. How can you think through the broader movement you're a part of, and how can you be movement generous, supporting others in your vision of impact as well? Because I do think when we get laser focused on ourselves, it's harder to see that sometimes the most effective way to make change is just supporting others. And whether that's through kindness or whether that's through volunteering and time. But I think that goes a long way in terms of creating a shared sense of purpose and a shared direction of change. And that's something we're really focused on until is how do we build a movement knowing we're all pushing in the same direction? We all want the same thing, which is healthier and sustainable food. So let's put our disagreements to the side and collectively find that commonality. And I think that goes a long way, especially in this current moment in the U.S. is recognizing where we have a lot of similarities, regardless of any other differences.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I love that all of you guys kind of really pushed on the idea of service. I'll give one as well. I think in a corporate environment, give space to the person who's quietest in the meeting and let them sort of give their ideas. Because a lot of times they're the ones that are thinking through things that you didn't think about. And that creates value. Well, thank you all. This was an amazing discussion. It was really an honor to have you all. And I hope that you enjoyed it as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Yes, Latavius, thank you for your work. It's incredible.
I appreciate it.
And Sarah.
Yeah, same to you both.
Sarah, I need my Sarah, I did have a question. I don't know if we're still live. Are we still live here?
Oh, I don't.
It says live, but how much meat should we be eating today? Now you had me thinking.
Yes, it's such a good question. I mean, ultimately, there's very specific dietary guidelines, and it's the equivalent of like one hamburger a week is what's recommended, but that could be, you know, a little bit of, yeah.